Hi, I'm Emma Jones, and for my variety of American English, I chose to research Chicano English. Chicano English is a variety of American English that has been influenced by the Spanish language and is used as a dialect by both bilingual and monolingual speakers, primarily located in the southwest region of the United States, from Texas to California. One sound feature of Chicano English is its final Z devoicing, so saying boys with more of an S sound rather than the standard boys with that final Z sound. Robert Bailey and Corey Holland conducted a study looking into this feature, basing their findings off of an analysis of the sociolinguistic interviews they conducted of adolescent and young adults that lived in a public housing project in South Texas. While it is often assumed that this prevalence of devoicing in Chicano English is due to Spanish interference, this study shows that a speaker's first language does not significantly affect the rates of devoicing, but rather that it is a highly systematic and subject to linguistic and social constraints. For instance, what the following or preceding segment is, the morphological status of the word, or whether the speaker is male or female. Although the frequency of devoicing can vary between speakers of Chicano English and other varieties, the effect of these different constraints of devoicing has been similar among studies of different English varieties and even other languages. This table looks at where and when Z devoicing is most likely to take place in English. So a devoiced Z is more likely to take place before a pause or a voiceless fricative rather than a voice segment, but more likely to follow a voice stopped rather than a vowel. Devoicing has also been linked to morphological class, as it is preferred for possessives and plurals rather than verbal inflections. Finally, devoicing has also been related to the speaker's sex, as females are more likely to devoice than males. Despite the fact that devoicing occurs in varieties other than just Chicano English, it is often considered to be the most persistent feature of a bilingual accent, as Roger Thompson actually classified speakers who devoice Z at a rate of less than 25% as speakers of standard English, while those who devoice Z at rates of 25% or more are classified as speakers of Spanish-influenced English. An interesting structural feature of Chicano English is the special use of the word barely to mean had just recently, rather than the standard American English definition of only just or only a short time before. For example, saying these were expensive when they barely came out, instead of a more standard American English structure that would be these were expensive at the beginning when they had just come out, or these were expensive when they first came out. It is thought that this use of the word barely could be traced back to the Spanish adverb apenas, which has two definitions. The first being similar to the definition of barely in many English variations, meaning something almost did not happen, but then it did. The second definition being something happened just recently, which is where Chicano English draws their unique use of the word. For instance, the phrase, I barely broke my leg, which would be completely acceptable in Chicano English, but not in most other dialects of English. One of the most distinctive lexical features of Chicano English is the use of Spanish lexical items, regardless of the extent of Spanish that the speaker actually knows. While speakers of Chicano English who do not know or are not fluent in Spanish will still use well-known words and phrases such as adios and hasta luego to index their identities, speakers that are more fluent or bilingual use Spanish lexical items to a point of code switching. For example, saying es un little boy in the place of it's a little boy. This rapid code switching in combination of Spanish and English, sometimes referred to as Spanglish, has become somewhat of a staple of Chicano English. Linguist Carmen Fott, who talked to young adult Chicano English speakers in Los Angeles, said, David, 17, for example, told me, 2 languages sounds better for us Mexicans. Jorge told me he liked code switching and explained to me that it is what distinguishes Chicano or Mexican Americans from people actually living in Mexico. He referred to code switching as Chicano language. Several other Chicano speakers described this way of talking as cool. So in a sense, one might say fluency in Chicano English includes the acceptance of using Spanish and English in the same sentence, whether or not one does it. Chicano English is frequently mistaken as learner English, as when people hear this variation, they associate it with a Hispanic accent and jump to the conclusion that the speaker's first language is Spanish. The issue with this assumption is that while some Chicano English speakers are bilingual, many are not and grew up learning and using English natively. This immediate assumption of the speaker being bilingual and having Spanish be their first language often leads to another assumption of the speaker being an immigrant and the negative connotation that carries in today's society. On top of this assumption of immigrant status, when youth speakers adapt some certain linguistical features from the white population, they are seen as trying to assimilate. However, Carmen Font and Penelope Eckert would argue that the participation of Latinos and African Americans in sound changes associated with the white population should be seen not as assimilation, but as a stylistic move that deserves more careful attention. Overall, Chicano English carries somewhat of a negative connotation in U.S. culture due to its association with immigrant status and the negative light in which the government, and more specifically the current administration, has painted immigration. Thanks for listening.